Hello, everyone. This is Monroe. I know I don't normally make videos where I talk, but this is a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, so I want to talk about what an absolute disaster StarClan is. So, StarClan and the Dark Forest are very clearly written to be what is essentially the cat equivalent of heaven and hell. And with the Dark Forest, they at least nailed like the concept of hell. Like, there's no Satan, there's no devil whose job it is to inflict that eternal suffering of hell. But the Dark Forest is described as somewhere where you are cold, miserable, and hungry all of the time. You don't necessarily need a dude to like enforce that. It's just like that, and that's fine. But my main issue is that StarClan is where the good cats are supposed to be going when they die. In the Christian heaven, God is up there with infinite knowledge of you and all of your deeds, and he's in charge of like deciding whether or not you can come into heaven. Like deciding whether or not you're worthy to go to heaven. But in StarClan, because there's no guy in charge and they're all just kind of on equal footing, it doesn't work like that. Like there are leaders in StarClan, but they don't gain any sort of infinite wisdom, and none of them are really in charge above StarClan above everyone else. So when these cats die and they go to StarClan and they don't gain this godlike wisdom or anything that would really entitle them to be worshipped as anyone that's like wiser than the cats that are on the ground, it sort of feels like how maybe it would feel if your grandma were to die and you just kind of started worshiping her as a god with godlike wisdom, even though she didn't gain any of that wisdom post death. So it feels like maybe how it would feel if you were to pray to your grandma for answers and she were to say something obscenely problematic or racist. Like that's how it feels when the cats in the books ask StarClan for answers and they get absolute nonsense back. The only one that does get this sort of wisdom is Fluttering Bird from Dawn of the Clans, and she's a complete outlier that is so far removed from the rest of the books that I can't count her. But in Christianity, you're praying to God and Jesus, who are said to have this sort of infinite wisdom that like the StarClan cats don't get. So when you as a Christian are praying to God or Jesus, you're praying for like advice on what to do based on the teachings of like peace and love and all that good stuff that Christianity is like supposed to be about. And like Christianity has, okay, like the 10 Commandments, and StarClan, I guess the Warrior Cats have the Warrior Code. Like, let's just say that's their 10 Commandments. All right, fine. God in the Bible definitely does some messed up stuff, like especially pre-Jesus. But when he tells people, hey, do this thing that breaks this commandment, he doesn't immediately punish them for breaking that commandment. Like there are multiple times, like pre and post 10 commandments, where God commands people to kill people. And I'm not going to like go into whether or not these things that I'm about to bring up were pre or post 10 commandments because I don't really want to dig that up. But take, for example, the binding of Isaac, where Abraham takes Isaac up onto that mountain because God's like, hey man, I want you to kill your son. And then the angel comes down and he stops Abraham, and God's like, I just wanted to test your devotion. Why isn't StarClan like that? Because you have these instances where StarClan is either vague on purpose or deliberately tells cats to do things that would be against the warrior code. And then the cats will go and do them, and StarClan will get mad at them for it. Why are you getting mad at them for it? You told them to do this. Why are you not like taking this as though it's some sort of like test of their devotion to you? Like let's for a moment look at Squirrelflight's hope. When Squirrelflight and Leafpool are in that like death limbo situation and they go up to StarClan and there's Yellowfang and Blue Star and all those other guys whose job it is to be like determine whether or not they can come in. These are all characters who have broken the warrior code in some way. So when they get mad at Squirrelflight and they're like, we told you to take the kids, but that doesn't mean you should have done it. Even though cats like Yellowfang and Blue Star had children and were in half-clan relationships when they weren't supposed to be. They told Squirrelflight, lie and say that you're barren and take in your sister's children. So Leafpool and Squirrelflight had literally nothing to really go off of that would imply to them that StarClan did not want them to do this. They were extremely vague to Leafpool when she said, "What should I do?" when she was about to run away with Crowfeather. So they said, "Follow your heart." So she did. She followed her heart and she went with Crowfeather. And then when she's in that near-death limbo, they're like, you shouldn't have done that. Then why did you tell me to do it? In the Bible, when God tells someone to do something that would maybe break a commandment and they do it anyway, God takes that as a showing of their devotion to him. Why isn't StarClan doing that? There's nobody up there who has that infinite godlike wisdom who can maybe see the intentions of the characters and really gauge whether or not they should be in heaven. Like, a lot of the time in Christianity, when you hear about somebody going to heaven who maybe might not have deserved to go to heaven, you'll have people that say things like, "Oh, well, you don't know what was in his heart," which implies that that person, despite doing what they did, may have had intentions or believed that that was something that God would have wanted them to do, or that they were doing something that they truly believed was for the greater good. StarClan doesn't have a guy who can check that. We know that they don't because they let Ashfur into StarClan, and after they let in Ashfur, they were like, he tricked us. Like, you can't look at Ashfur trapping the three in like a fiery death and argue in any capacity that he truly believed in that moment that that was something that StarClan would have wanted him to do. Like, when Yellowfang says that Ashfur's only crime was that he loved too much, there's no way that Ashfur trying to kill the three to get back at Squirrelflight could have ever been interpreted as something that StarClan would have wanted him to do. Like, at all. Because even if you take into account that the three were the product of a half-clan relationship, Ashfur didn't know that at the time that he did what he did. Like, let's take in, for example, another character who maybe shouldn't have gone to StarClan, Oakstar. Oakstar is the leader in the book Mapleshade's Vengeance, and he's also Pinestar's dad. In Mapleshade's Vengeance, Mapleshade has children with Appledusk, who is a RiverClan warrior, so her children are the product of a half-clan relationship. And not only does she have children with a cat from another clan and have half-clan children, she lies to her clan and believes that StarClan wants her to lie about her children being Birchface's. Birchface is Oakstar's son. So she lied to Oakstar about her children being his grandkids. And when Oakstar finds out that these cats are not only not his grandchildren, but are half-clan children, which is a direct violation of the warrior code, and he kicks out both Mapleshade and her children and exiles them from ThunderClan. Despite the fact that this is an extremely messed up thing for him to do, you could argue that based on the warrior code and the rule about not having half-clan relationships, you could argue that he truly believed in his heart of hearts that kicking out Mapleshade and her children was something that StarClan wanted him to do, or would have approved of him doing at that time. Like, they definitely shouldn't have, because in my mind, the kicking the children out directly contradicts the not putting a kit in danger rule that the warrior code has. But let's just say that since the kits weren't in danger at the exact moment that he kicked them out, because they were with their mother and Mapleshade was meant to be keeping them safe, let's say that he did truly believe that that was something that StarClan would have approved of him doing. Let's consider another character, Juniper Claw. Juniper Claw poisoned SkyClan's fresh kill pile because he didn't want StarClan, or SkyClan, I'm sorry. He didn't want SkyClan to come in and take ShadowClan's territory because he thought that it would result in ShadowClan losing food and not being able to feed themselves. So despite the fact that it's, clearly wrong to poison another clan's food supply, you could argue that in Juniper Claw's mind at that moment, he believed that he was doing what he was supposed to, which is defend and protect his clan at all costs. Juniper Claw dies a death that redeems him. He dies by diving into the water to rescue Shadowkit, Tiger Star's son, from drowning, even after Tiger Star has just stripped him of his deputy ship and is clearly not trusting of him in the least bit. And his last words are, "Tell Tiger Star I'm sorry," which clearly demonstrates that he regrets his behavior. But he gets sent to the Dark Forest anyway, even after the events of A Light in the Mist, where he helps Bristlefrost and everyone defeat Ashfur. The best he gets is to just sit in that weird tunnel and like guard the entrance to StarClan. What is the point in that? But Ashfur, in every capacity, he doesn't die in a way that redeems him. He doesn't have a moment where he turns around and is a force for good. And when he does all of the stuff he does in the arc where he possesses Bramblestar, he is just doing all of that. And then when the StarClan cats are asked why they let him into StarClan in the first place, they're like, oh, he tricked us. So the StarClan cats don't have anyone who's like fully like godlike wisdom would like put them in a position where they're able to tell based on someone's entire life and all of their deeds and all of their intentions who deserves to go to heaven and who doesn't. And that's why it doesn't work. It doesn't work as a like parallel to heaven because nobody is up there with the infinite wisdom of like God and Jesus presiding over heaven. It's just a bunch of people who are all on equal footing, and the longer they're up there, it seems like they become even more and more disconnected from the cats on the ground. And that's something that drives me insane, and I just wanted to talk about it. And Juniper Claw dives into the water to rescue Shadowclit. Shadowclit! Oh my god. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Oh my god.